And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of Mock Draft Mondays here on the High Low Sports podcast. We appreciate y'all for joining us here. We are only a couple weeks away from the actual official NFL draft, so we only got a couple more of these to go. We've seen some ups, we've seen some downs, we've seen a lot of trades, some pro days, some different rumors, and different draft picks and player trades kind of influence where we think players are going to go. Today, we're going to stick with a round one only mock draft, and this time we're going to have a little bit of fun with this one as well, like we've done with so many of them. I think this one's going to start to be take a little more shape of what I think might actually be more likely. Probably a few less fluky things here and there, but there will be some surprises to be certain. So we're going to go and get right out of the gate. There will be no surprises at pick number one. Caleb Williams, as he's been in all of these mock drafts and probably every mock draft that's been done for the greater part of the last month. Caleb Williams is heading to Chicago to be the quarterback of the Bears. At pick number two, we got the Washington Commanders. Drake May, Jaden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, they could go all three of those directions. They could even trade back potentially if they wanted to. There's no lock-in for sure. I think the consensus is it's going to be Daniels or May, but even then it's a little shaky. I'm going to go with Drake May for this one. I'm going to say I think he's kind of went through that part of the draft cycle where everyone poops on him. Now I think he kind of rebounds just a little bit just in time for draft time, where they're going to take the extremely talented kid out of North Carolina and think they could touch up on some of the things like his footwork and give him time to develop some of those other issues that have people, for lack of better terms, pooping on him the last couple of months. So we're going to go with Drake May at pick number two. Pick number three is the New England Patriots. Jaden Daniels makes all the sense in the world here. They need a quarterback. They do need a lot of positions. Marvin Harrison Jr. makes a lot of sense here. We're going to say they go with a little bit of a plot twist and they do go quarterback, but we're going to say they're the first shakeup in that they take J.J. McCarthy, the young QB out of Michigan. They did have a Michigan man lead their franchise for 20 glorious years. For everybody else outside of the Boston area, it was not so glorious, but I do think they will lean in that direction. Young kid, give him time to develop. Gerard Mayo, I believe, is building long term, and I think he'd probably want to build a team kind of similar to what Michigan was. The defense, run the ball a little more old school style with some new concepts mixed in. So say J.J. McCarthy is a pick number three. Arizona's phone is going to be going ballistic here for pick number four, but I do think they're going to look at it. You already got 2 first-round picks. You do got some extra capital throughout the draft. I think they're going to stand pat, and they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. because for me personally, he's the best player in the draft overall, and I think for a lot of teams he is that way too. I know there's a lot of talk about Malik Neighbors could be the number one receiver for a lot of teams. I think for Arizona, they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. 6'4", runs like a gazelle up and down the sideline, pristine route running. Can't ask for a whole lot more. Give Kyler Murray that number one receiver, someone like the DeAndre Hopkins that he doesn't have right now. Someone like that he could just go to. If they're one-on-one on the outside, you take those odds more often than not. So Marvin Harrison Jr. heads to Arizona. The Chargers now become a very, very hot spot for a trade, and I think the Raiders are going to offer one heck of a package here for the Chargers, but they're Jaden Daniels, Antonio Pierce, we know about that connection from Arizona State. I think if Jaden Daniels slips, that is the guy they go after. However, they're not going to be able to offer more than what Minnesota is, and I think the Chargers are going to take that. Plus, they're not going to trade within their own division. They might even throw like an extra one. We'll do something ridiculous like that. The Chargers are like, okay, pick number 11, 23, and whatever else is thrown in there, and that'll work. So Minnesota is going to fly up the board now, and they are going to take Jaden Daniels now. Jaden Daniels along with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, Kevin O'Connell leading the way. That's one dynamic offense in the NFC North. So there's some young firepower now in the NFC North. Jared Goff is the old guy, yet they were one half away from being the Super Bowl. So the NFC North is getting real interesting real quick. Kind of similar to what the AFC South was last year, seeing 3 teams draft rookie quarterbacks, plus the young up-and-coming star in Trevor Lawrence at the time. So I think we'll see Jaden Daniels head to the Vikings. Pick number 6, the New York Giants, just missing out on some of those guys. I think they kind of are locked into Daniel Jones. They brought in Drew Lock to potentially be that guy at this point. And I think they're looking at like, we need weapons. Darren Waller might retire. Out on the outside, you don't have a lot of weapons. Saquon Barkley is gone. So we're going to give them Malik Neighbors. Explosive, the best slot receiver in the draft, in my opinion. Can play outside, but he does his best work just toasting safeties and linebackers and even nickel corners up and down the field. So Malik Neighbors at pick number 6 to the Giants. Pick number 7, we got the Tennessee Titans. I've gone with Joe Alt on a lot of these. I kind of want to mix it up and go somewhere else, but it just makes too much sense. That division, you got Josh Allen. You now have Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. You got the Colts pass rush, which is a little more by committee, but you need to be able to protect Will Levis. You need to protect Tony, give Tony Pollard room to run. You brought in Skoronski last year, was a really good pick, a really good guard. I think now you get your left tackle, and it doesn't get much better than Joe Alt here. So we're going to take Joe Alt to Tennessee. It just makes too much sense. And after bringing in Calvin Ridley, you're probably a little less likely to go after an Adunze. Maybe if it was Neighbors or Harrison, you make that adjustment. But I think Adunze, Hopkins, they kind of can do a lot of the same. They're very similar type players. So we're going to say Joe Alt, and you can't really go wrong with offensive line as a reloading team. Pick number 8, Atlanta. I like that. We've gone a lot of different directions with them. A lot of it's been edge, whether it's Dallas Turner or Jared Verse. Today, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to say they go defense still, but they're going to take corner and Terrion Arnold to play opposite of A.J. Terrell. They cannot seem to hit on edge consistently. So at this point, I feel like Raheem Morris is going to be like, you know what, fine. We're going to have a ridiculous secondary to make it better for everyone. I like Quinyon Mitchell a little bit better, but I do think they'll go Terrion Arnold, the more seasoned, polished, kind of out of the SEC, out of Alabama, the Saban coach corner. Very good technician. Put him opposite A.J. Terrell with Jesse Bates on the back end. I think they like the route. So we're going to go Terrion Arnold, the first defensive player off the board to the Falcons. Which means at pick number 9, we have the Chicago Bears. A lot that can go around here. I think Dallas Turner and Jared Verse make a lot of sense. Honestly, Quinyon Mitchell makes a lot of sense. You compare him. Same with Rome Odunze. They have a lot of really good options here. What I think they're going to do is I think they're going to still stick with defense. I think Matt Eberflus is going to get his way. I think a lot of the rumors of them wanting to go with edge to go opposite Montez Sweat come true. We're going to go ahead and take Dallas Turner. They're going to have some absolute torpedoes off the edge with Sweat and Turner. They're going to fly up the field. I think they would be willing to trade back if someone made the right offer, but in this case, I'm going to say they're going to stick and pick, and we're going to see Dallas Turner go. Now at pick number 10, we have the New York Jets. Rome Odunze and Brock Bowers are looking awfully tempting. But they do. I know they signed the 2 tackles, and it would be the mature adult franchise thing to look at Talisi Fuaga and be like, he could play guard, he could play tackle, open things up for Breece Hall. It makes so much sense to take him. And if one of those tackles go down, you could slide him there where he's expected to be. However, it is the Jets, and I think they're going to get greedy. I'm going to give them Rome Odunze. To Mike Williams, if he's healthy, he's awesome, but he does have a history of injuries, and MetLife Field is dangerous. I think they're thinking along those same lines. And Rome Odunze with those back shoulder fades with Michael Penix. We know how much Aaron Rodgers loves the back shoulder fades. They're going to keep that going. So Rome Odunze is heading to the Big Apple. Pick number 11, the Chargers, who I think we're really hoping for Odunze to fall there. Since he does not, though, they will be looking at Talisi Fuaga and Olu Fashanu. It's a 6 and 1 and half a does the other. I think Harbaugh is going to love to run the ball, so I think Fuaga is going to make sense here. I think Fashanu is very tempting. He saw him a lot while he was coaching at Michigan. He saw his entire career when it going against him. But I think we're going to lean towards Fuaga on this one, just a little bit more of a mauling type offensive lineman. And now here, pick number 12, we are going to have ourselves yet another trade. So Denver, unfortunately, is not going to be able to climb up the draft to get some of those quarterbacks they were looking at. So I think at this point, their goal is, let's get some picks. So we're going to go to Philadelphia, who I think is going to be willing to climb up. They've been wheeling and dealing a lot this offseason, and they do have that extra second-round pick. So I think they'll be willing to send 22 and 53 to jump these other teams. And I think they're going to look at it. I'm going to give them Quinyon Mitchell. In my opinion, the best corner in the draft. I think they'd agree. You pair him with Darius Slay and just I know they brought in Keely Ringo. I know they brought back C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the secondary as well. That secondary is getting torched a lot down the stretch last year. They need to reload it and reload it quickly. Got rid of Hassan Reddick, so I know Jared Verse is very much in that conversation. But you still had Nolan Smith, and you have Carter Davis. They have a lot of players. I think they'll try and shore up the secondary even more so for the long run, bringing in Quinyon Mitchell, getting the best corner in the draft, in my opinion. Pick number 13, the Las Vegas Raiders, who I think are very much in that same conversation. They were probably looking for Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold. I'm going to go ahead and give them Olu Fashanu. Antonio Pierce is going to want to run the ball, play really tough defense. We saw them bring in Christian Wilkins. I think looking at the board here, offensive line is the thing that makes the most sense for them. We're going to give them Olu Fashanu. I think tackles are going to go on this little bit of a run early, then they'll stagnate, then they'll get going again. Pick number 14, New Orleans. This is where I think they need a tackle. But I think with that little run of tackles, the question is, how much do they like J.C. Latham and Troy Fatanu? I think they will like them a lot. This is tough because I do want to – it makes so much sense to give him tackle, but I'm going to give them Brian Thomas Jr. I think they're going to stick with the kid in Louisiana. They are committed a lot of money to Derek Carr a lot of years. You have Chris Olave. Mike Thomas is on his way out. Rashid Shaheed, I believe, is on the way out too. They're going to go ahead and give him another big-time target so you already committed to Derek Carr. They're going to try and maximize him this way. I would personally think they should take offensive line here, but we're going to go and shake it up and give him Brian Thomas Jr. Pick number 15, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is another area where they'd be willing to trade back. I think Brian Thomas and Quinyon Mitchell should be at the top of their boards. However, there is a certain tight end named Brock Bowers just sitting there, and I think Shane Steichen, the way they ran offense, the multiple tight end looks, how Anthony Richardson really threw well to the tight ends. I think that is someone that's going to be really hard for them to turn down. He's an absolute freak of nature at the tight end spot. They could split him out to the slot. You could throw screens to him. You can line up in the backfield. He gives them a very versatile weapon to pair along with Jelani Woods, and they have different run fits and different schematic things they could do with the personnel. It's going to be hard for them to turn down Brock Bowers. So say Bowers goes to the Colts. Pick number 16, Seattle Seahawks. I think they will run this one to the podium if Jared Verse is still there. Jared Verse, they need edge rush. They need pass rush in general. And I think edge, Jared Verse doesn't get much better than that going to Seattle. Jacksonville, pick number 17. They need a lot. They mostly defensively. Like you have Josh Allen, you have Foy, a Louis Kahn, and a Devin Lloyd. That's really strong. Tyson Campbell's a really good corner, but I think they're going to look at, you have CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and now Will Levis in the division. I like Liatu Latu coming in there to play opposite Josh Allen. A little bit of an injury risk there as well, but he has he does a couple of things extremely well, but those are the only things he does. But you pair him opposite Josh Allen to just get after quarterbacks in those third and long situations. It's a great fit. So Latu heading down to Jacksonville. Pick number 18, the Cincinnati Bengals. Byron Murphy would make a lot of sense here. So would J.C. Latham. So would Troy Fatanu. Honestly, they have a lot. They need offensive line help. I think they're going to go with Byron Murphy, though, because they did just bring in Trent Brown. You have Orlando Brown you were kind of committed to. Actually, you know what? We're going to call an audible to that even more so. We're going to scroll down. We're going to go ahead. I want to give him Jackson Powers Johnson because we all know the Bengals have offensive line issues, but they have not really committed to drafting offensive linemen. So I've talked myself out of it, and they're going to take Byron Murphy, someone to get after the quarterback. You can line them all up and down the defensive line, pressure up the middle, can play the run very well in that division. You need to do that as well. Very athletic. So Byron Murphy's going to head to Cincinnati. Los Angeles Rams, who I think had their eyes on Byron Murphy. We know Sean McVay is going to like versatile players that can do a lot of things. I'm going to go and give them Cooper DeJean, who I think is going to do I think he could play outside corner. I think especially in a cover 3, cover 4, like in a zone-heavy system, he could play a lot of outside corner. He could play safety. He can play man, too. He could play in the nickel. He's very versatile. Could be that star, or as some teams like to call their defender, like what the Rams did with Jalen Ramsey. So we're going to say Cooper DeJean, surprisingly, will go pick number 19 to the Rams, just a defensive playmaker that they need. Pick number 20, Pittsburgh Steelers get an absolute steal. They need offensive linemen, and J.C. Latham, who could very easily go in the top 5 or 10. It just happens to slip all the way down to them. They should sprint this car to the podium. Don't get greedy. Don't look elsewhere. Don't invest more into your defense that's already the highest paid defense in the NFL, which, they're probably thinking about doing. You get a chance to pair J.C. Latham with Broderick Jones. Now you have Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, whoever's playing quarterback, Najee Harris. It makes too much sense. Bring in J.C. Latham to play the opposite tackle. Miami, they need offensive line help as well, but they do have a big missing gap there in the form of Christian Wilkins, who just left. Defensively, they've had losing Xavier Howard too. They got to retool that defense quick, fast, and in a hurry. So I think they look at Byron Murphy or Johnny Newton are the two guys they're looking at. So I think in this case, they'll bring in Johnny Newton, pressure up the middle, someone that can pair along with Bradley Chubb, and then Jalen Phillips when he comes back healthy. So we'll go Johnny Newton for Miami, although offensive line is far from out of the question. Denver Broncos, after the trade back, I think now is where they will get their quarterback. I think this is where they will look in. Bo Nix to Denver, everyone's been saying it makes a lot of sense. I think Michael Penix would be a lot of fun here. But with Sean Payton, he has to win now, basically. Like, he's kind of in the hot seat. They got rid of Russell. He's very strict, I guess you could say, in the way they run offense. He wants it to be his offense, not just necessarily successful offense. So I think Bo Nix, the ultimate point guard distributor, plug and play right away, can move, can sling the ball. I think it's a safe pick for a team that just needs some stability at quarterback. So we're going to go with Bo Nix there. I wouldn't be surprised if they took Michael Penix. I just feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's been a lot of smoke with Bo Nix and Denver for basically the whole process. So I'm going to go ahead and stick with that as well. Los Angeles Chargers up on the board again here at pick number 23. And they did take offensive line earlier. They should take receiver here is what a lot of teams would say. Give Justin Herbert some weapons, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to say they're actually going to go defensively. They're going to see Nate Wiggins hanging out there, pair him with Asante Samuel Jr., along with Derwin James. Offensive line, corner, and receiver are definitely their biggest needs. I think with how deep the receiver class is and how Harbaugh's going to want to run the ball anyway, he's going to look at that. I'll get somebody in the second round, whether it's Roman Wilson or whoever might slip, because you're not going to see 10 receivers go between now and their next pick. So we're going to go with Nate Wiggins here to the Chargers, delaying the receiver question just a little bit longer. Next, we have the Dallas Cowboys, who, bless their hearts, Troy Fautanu will slip to them, and they should hand that card to CeeDee Lamb and have him sprint that one to Roger Goodell, bring in Troy Fautanu. Can play tackle, most likely going to play guard at the next level, I think. You have Tyler Smith, you could play at tackle, then have Fautanu come into guard. I think when they've been at their best is when they invest in the offensive line. I think Troy Fautanu here makes a ton of sense. One with the Packers here that I've been doing a lot. So I've been giving them Kool-Aid McKinstry a lot, and I'm going to stick with it for one more week. It's been Kool-Aid McKinstry and Cooper DeJean have been the two that have kind of consistently altered back and forth. And I'm going to stick with that one more week. I think offensive line is very much in play for them, but I also don't. I think in this case, they are going to look at defense and be like, all right, well, we have Yair Alexander, but we did lose Darnell Savage. And then last year they traded Rasul Douglas. I think they just need to shore up the secondary a little bit. Now that they see Jane Daniels coming in against for Minnesota, you do have Caleb Williams coming in with those receivers. We know what Detroit does. They know they need to get a couple of stops on occasion. So I think that's where Kool-Aid McKinstry comes in. Tampa Bay at pick number 26. I like a lot of things for them here. I'm going to go ahead and go with Jackson Powers Johnson. You invested in Baker Mayfield. You invested in Mike Evans. I think they want to fortify that offensive line along with Tristan Wirfs. Just build and they need to run the ball better. Like they need to be able to get Rashid White and everyone going. And I think that starts on the interior of the offensive line. And JPJ just makes a ton of sense in the middle. So we'll go Jackson Powers Johnson at pick number 26 to Tampa Bay. Pick number 27, Arizona. They need corners and they need defense. Now you got your receiver. Offensive line is also a big need for him, but Chop Robinson is sitting right there. And I know we saw what Jonathan Gannon did when he was with the Philadelphia Eagles, unleashing Hassan Reddick. And I think he's going to see a lot of similarities with Chop Robinson, a little bit raw tools wise, but absolute freak of nature athletically. So Chop Robinson heading to Arizona. Now pick number 28, the Buffalo Bills. Receiver is kind of the play here. Previously it had been defense or possibly even trade back and load up on picks. But now after the Stephon Diggs trade, you have Khalil Shakur and not a whole lot else. And I think there are very much a possibility to trade up if Brian Thomas starts to slip. I can see them trading maybe into the late teens here. But with Brian Thomas going earlier, this is going to leave them. This is tough because I want to give them Xavier Worthy just because the idea of that would be so much fun. You'd have the two tight ends and just terrorizing the middle of the field with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Khalil Shakur, the guy you could kind of throw the ball to 5 yards and he can dance and take it 15 every time. And I'm going to do it. I've talked myself into it. They're going to look at Xavier Worthy's just absolute raw speed and send him on 9 routes or deep posts every single play to occupy the safeties. As soon as the safeties don't respect that, Josh Allen will let it fly. And you know what? Xavier Worthy might be the one guy, might be someone he could underthrow, but you're willing to take that risk. He can just let it fly and Worthy can run underneath it. And if he keeps those safeties back, that's a lot of room for Kincaid, Knox, and Shakir to work underneath. So we're going to say Xavier Worthy. While A.D. Mitchell probably makes a little bit more sense, probably the better overall receiver, we're going to give them Xavier Worthy for what he brings for down the field speed and in that offense. Pick number 29, we have the Detroit Lions. They need corner. They need secondary help badly. I'm going to give him Ennis Rackstraw Jr., very good corner out of Missouri. Not the most athletically mesmerizing necessarily, but he is a very good, very solid corner, and they just need help in the secondary. They're not used to picking this far back without having a couple of picks earlier, but Detroit gets a very good one for a position in need here at pick 29. Pick 30, the Ravens see the board fall like this. They could use receiver help. That would make a lot of sense, but you did trade Morgan Moses to the Jets, and Ronnie Stanley Jr., unfortunately, just has not been consistently healthy, so I think Amarius Mims makes a lot of sense here, bringing the versatile tackle, mauler in the run game. You don't have Derrick Henry along with Lamar Jackson. I think that shows, hey, we are going to run the ball again. And we're not going to let that AFC championship happen where we ran the ball 8 times. We are going to commit to an Amarius Mims, an absolute, he is a wall. He is a wall all of his own. So Amarius Mims to Baltimore. Pick 31, San Francisco. This is the year they commit to the offensive line as well. I know we're tired of seeing offensive linemen go in the first round, but they need offensive line. You have Trent Williams and then a bunch of other guys that here and there, that's where teams have been kind of attacking them, is they will attack opposite of Trent Williams. They've been able to use blocking schemes, different things to mask it, but I think when you get in those situations where it's one-on-one, Chris Jones is completely running through the middle, which he does to just about everybody. But I think they're going to do more here to try and solidify it. I like Graham Barton a lot, but I'm going to go with Tyler Guyton, the versatile offensive tackle from Oklahoma. They could put him at right tackle, maybe slide him to guard. Either way, I like him here, so we're going to go with Tyler Guyton. Pick number 32, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. I will say, too, I didn't mention it. I think these last 3 to 4 picks are a prime trade-up spot for someone looking to get Michael Penix, who I think should go in the first round. Honestly, I really want to fit him in there, just the way the board fell. I didn't want to do a lot of trades here at the back end, but I do think there's a lot of teams you could say. New Orleans might want to trade back into the first round. Seattle, I could see very much trading back and getting him here. They might be something we do in a future mock draft. I just didn't think of it at the time. But Kansas City at this point is going to stick and pick, and I'm going to go and give him A.D. Mitchell. Ladd McConkey's picked up a lot of steam for it just because it would fit perfectly. But we're going to give him A.D. Mitchell. I think just the talent, the size, the ability to tackle. He has 5 career touchdowns in the college football playoff. He's a big play receiver, big time target, and Kansas City is going to get one of the top 5 receivers in the draft at pick number 32. That is what we're looking at for this week's Mock Draft Monday. Let us know down below which picks you like, which picks you don't like, and which ones you think might be a little bit different. Well, as you can see, a lot of good players available in round 2, and we still got a couple more mock drafts to go before the NFL draft itself. I am excited as ever. We appreciate y'all for joining us, and we will see you all again next time.